of ritual purity. Section 3. The division of the mitzvos. It consists of 8 halachot. They are, in order, the laws of the ritual impurity imparted by a human corpse, the laws of the purification process involving the red heifer, the laws of the ritual impurity imparted by tzaraat, the laws of the sources of ritual impurity which impart impurity to the places where one sits and the places where one lies, the laws of the other categories of sources of ritual impurity, the laws of the ritual impurity contracted by foods, the laws of the ritual impurity contracted by vessels, the laws of mikvaot, the laws of the ritual impurity imparted by a human corpse. They contain one positive commandment, the laws governing the ritual impurity imparted by a human corpse, the laws of the purification process involving the red heifer. They contain 2 positive commandments. They are 1. The law of the red heifer. 2. The laws involving the ritual purity and impurity imparted by the water that is sprinkled together with the ashes of the red heifer. The laws of the ritual impurity imparted by tzaraat. They contain 8 mitzvot, 6 positive commandments and 2 negative commandments. They are 1. To render judgments concerning tzaraat in humans as prescribed by the Torah. 2. Not to cut off the signs of tzaraat. 3. Not to shave a bald spot. 4. That a person afflicted by tzaraat should make known his state of impurity by wearing torn clothing, letting his hair grow long, and covering his head. 5. The purification process of a person afflicted by tzaraat. 6. That a person afflicted by tzaraat should shave off all his hair as part of his purification process. 7. The laws of tzaraat in clothing. 8. The laws of tzaraat in houses. The laws of the sources of ritual impurity which impart impurity to the places where one sits and the places where one lies. They contain 4 positive commandments. They are 1. The laws of the impurity of the nida state. 2. The laws of the impurity of a woman after childbirth. 3. The laws of the impurity of a zava. 4. The laws of the impurity of a zav. The laws of the other categories of sources of ritual impurity. They contain 3 positive commandments. They are 1. The laws of the impurity imparted by an animal carcass. 2. The laws of the impurity imparted by a. the carcass of a crawling animal. 3. The laws of the impurity imparted by human semen. These halachot also deal with the ritual impurity imparted by false gods and their accessories. This ritual impurity is equivalent to that imparted by the carcass of a crawling animal. It is a rabbinic injunction. The laws of the ritual impurity contracted by foods. They contain 1 positive commandment, the laws of the impurity contracted by liquids and foods, and how it is possible for them to regain ritual purity. The laws of the ritual impurity contracted by vessels. The intent of these laws is to know which vessels can contract the above-mentioned impurities and which do not, and how the vessels contract and impart ritual impurity, the laws of mikvaot. They contain 1 positive commandment, that all those who are impure should immerse themselves in the waters of a mikveh to regain purity afterwards. Thus, this book contains a total of 20 mitzvot, 18 positive commandments, and 2 negative commandments. The Book of Damages. It consists of 5 halachot. They are in order: the laws of damage to property, the laws of theft, the laws of robbery and the return of lost objects, the laws of personal injury and damages caused directly by human action, the laws of murder and the protection of life, the laws of damage to property. They contain 4 positive commandments. They are 1. The laws governing the damages caused by the goring of an ox. 2. The laws governing the damages caused by the grazing of animals. 3. The laws governing the damages caused by an obstruction in public property. 4. The laws governing the damages caused by fire. The laws of theft. They contain 7 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments and 5 negative commandments. They are 1. Not to steal money. 2. The laws governing punishment of a thief. 3. To have proper scales and weights. 4. Not to deal unjustly with weights and measures. 5. For a person not to possess incorrect weights and measures, even if he does not use them for purchase or sale. 6. Not to alter a colleague's property marker. 7. Not to kidnap. The laws of robbery and the return of lost objects. They contain 7 mitzvot, 2 positive commandments and 5 negative commandments. They are: 1. Not to commit robbery. 2. Not to wrong a colleague by withholding his due. 3. Not to covet. 4. Not to desire. 5. To return a stolen object. 6. Not to ignore a lost object. 7. To return a lost object. The laws of personal injury and damages caused directly by human action. They contain 1 positive commandment: the laws governing injury which one person causes another, and damages which one person causes to a colleague's property. The laws of murder and the protection of life. They contain 17 mitzvot, 7 positive commandments and 10 negative commandments. They are: 1. Not to murder. 2. Not to take a ransom for the life of the murderer. 3. To exile one who inadvertently kills another person. 4. Not to take a ransom for the person sentenced to exile. 5. That the murderer should not be killed before having been given a trial. 6. To save a person who is being pursued, even at the expense of the pursuer's life. 7. Not to show any mercy to a pursuer. 8. Not to neglect a person in mortal danger. 9. To set aside cities of refuge and to prepare the road to them. 10. To decapitate a calf in a river in atonement for an unsolved murder. 11. Not to till or sow the land where this atonement was made. 12. Not to create a dangerous situation. 13. To put up a guardrail. 14. Not to cause an innocent person to err. 15. To unload a person or his animal that has fallen on the road. 16. To help him reload his animal. 17. Not to leave him distraught with his burden on the road. Thus, this book contains a total of 36 mitzvot, 16 positive commandments and 20 negative commandments. The Book of Acquisition of Property. It consists of 5 halachot. They are, in order, the laws governing sales, the laws governing the acquisition of property and presents, the laws governing relations with neighbors, the laws of agents and partners, the laws of slaves, the laws governing sales. They contain 4 mitzvot, 1 positive commandment and 3 negative commandments. They are: 1. The laws of sales and purchases. 2. Not to cheat a colleague in a business transaction. 3. Not to wrong a person with words. 4. Not to wrong a convert financially. 5. Not to wrong him with words. The laws governing the acquisition of property and presents. The intent of these laws is to know how one acquires ownerless property and what legal acts are involved. The laws governing the giving and receiving of a present, which present does not represent a binding commitment and therefore must be returned to its owner, and which is binding and need not be returned. The laws governing relations with neighbors. The intent of these laws is to know how land is divided between partners, the measures each person must take to prevent damage to the other and their neighbors, and the laws governing a person's right to purchase property sold by his neighbor. The laws of agents and partners. The intent of these laws is to know the laws governing the activities of a person's agent, the laws governing partners, and their application with regard to purchases, sales, losses, and profits. The laws of slaves. They contain 13 mitzvot, 5 positive commandments, and 8 negative commandments. They are: 1. The laws governing the purchase of a Hebrew servant. 2. That he not be sold in the way a slave is sold. 3. That he may not be made to perform rigorous work. 4. Not to allow a resident alien to make him perform rigorous work. 5. Not to make him perform servile tasks. 6. To give him a separation gift when he is released. 7. That he should not be released empty-handed. 8. To redeem a Hebrew maidservant. 9. To designate her as a bride. 10. Not to sell her. 11. To work with a Canaanite slave forever unless his master destroys one of his primary limbs. 12. Not to return a slave who fled from the diaspora to Eretz Yisrael. 13. Not to oppress this slave who has fled to us. Thus, this book contains a total of 18 mitzvot, 6 positive commandments, and 12 negative commandments. The Book of Judgments. It consists of 5 halachot. They are in order: the laws of employer-employee relations, the laws of borrowed and entrusted objects, the laws of lenders and borrowers, the laws governing disputes between plaintiffs and defendants, the laws governing inheritances, the laws of employer-employee relations. They contain 7 mitzvot, 3 positive commandments, and 4 negative commandments. They are: 1. The laws governing a hired worker and a paid watchman. 2. To pay a worker his wage when due. 3. Not to delay payment of a worker's wage after it falls due. 4. That a worker be allowed to eat from the produce with which he is working. 5. That a worker not eat from this during the time he should be working. 6. That a worker should not take more than what he eats. 7. Not to muzzle an ox or any other animal while it is treading grain. The laws of borrowed and entrusted objects. They contain 2 positive commandments. They are: 1. The laws pertaining to a borrower. 2. The laws pertaining to an unpaid watchman. The laws of lenders and borrowers. They contain 12 mitzvot, 4 positive commandments, and 8 negative commandments. They are: 1. To lend money to a poor and unfortunate person. 2. Not to demand repayment of his debt. 3. To demand repayment of a Gentile's debt. 4. Not to forcefully take security from a debtor. 5. To return security to a debtor when he needs it. 6. Not to delay returning security to a poor debtor when he needs it. 7. Not to take security from a widow. 8. Not to take utensils used to prepare food as security. 9. Not to give a loan at interest. 10. For a borrower not to accept a loan at interest. 11. For a person not to render assistance to a lender or a borrower with regard to a loan at interest. For him not to act as a witness or a guarantor, nor to compose a contract of loan. 12. To borrow from a Gentile and lend to him at interest. The laws governing disputes between plaintiffs and defendants. They contain 1 positive commandment: the laws governing claims issued by a plaintiff when the defendant either admits to them or denies them. The laws governing inheritances. They contain 1 positive commandment: the laws governing the order of inheritance. Thus, this book contains a total of 23 mitzvot, 11 positive commandments, and 12 negative commandments. The Book of Judges. It consists of 5 halachot. They are in order: the laws of the courts and the punishments over which they have jurisdiction, the laws of witnesses, the laws of the rebellious ones, the laws of mourning, the laws of kings and their wars, the laws of the courts, and the punishments over which they have jurisdiction. They contain 30 mitzvot, 10 positive commandments, and 20 negative commandments. They are: 1. To appoint judges. 2. Not to appoint a judge who does not know the proper manner of judgment. 3. To follow the majority if there is a difference of opinion among the judges. 4. Not to issue a death sentence if there is a majority of only 1 condemning the defendant. Rather, a majority of at least 2 is necessary. 5. For a person who argued in favor of acquittal in a capital case not to argue for a conviction. 6. To execute by stoning 1 condemned to death. 7. To execute by burning 1 condemned to death. 8. To execute by decapitation. 9. To execute by strangulation. 10. To hang the corpses of certain sinners who were executed. 11. To bury the executed person on the day of his execution. 12. Not to allow his corpse to remain unburied overnight. 13. Not to allow a sorcerer to live. 14. To punish a sinner with lashes. 15. Not to add blows when lashing a sinner. 16. Not to kill an innocent person based on an apparent conclusion. 17. Not to punish a person forced to commit a sin. 18. Not to have mercy on a person who killed or injured a colleague. 19. Not to have mercy on a poor person in judgment. 20. Not to honor a man of stature in judgment. 21. Not to pervert judgment against a sinner, even though he is known to be a transgressor. 22. Not to act deceitfully in judgment. 23. Not to pervert the justice due converts or orphans. 24. To render a righteous judgment. 25. For a judge not to fear rendering a just judgment because of a powerful person. 26. Not to accept a bribe. 27. Not to accept a false report. 28. Not to curse the judges. 29. Not to curse the Nasi. 30. Not to curse any other Jew of moral repute. The laws of witnesses. They contain 8 mitzvot, 3 positive commandments and 5 negative commandments. They are: 1. For a person who knows relevant testimony to testify in court. 2. To question and cross-examine witnesses. 3. For a witness not to render a decision in a capital case in which he has testified. 4. Not to render a decision based on the testimony of a single witness. 5. For a sinner not to act as a witness. 6. For a relative not to act as a witness. 7. Not to give false testimony. 8. To punish a false witness with the punishment he plotted to have the defendant receive. The laws of the rebellious ones. They contain 9 mitzvot, 3 positive commandments and 6 negative commandments. They are: 1. To follow the instructions given by the high court. 2. Not to deviate from their words. 3. Not to add to the Torah, neither to the mitzvot of the written law, nor to their explanation, which was transmitted by the oral tradition. 4. Not to detract from the mitzvot. 5. Not to curse one's father or mother. 6. Not to strike one's father or mother. 7. To honor one's father and mother. 8. To fear one's father and mother. 9. For a son not to rebel against his father's and mother's commands. The laws of mourning. They contain 4 mitzvot, 1 positive commandment and 3 negative commandments. They are: 1. To mourn for our relatives. Even a priest must become impure and mourn for his relatives. A person may not mourn for those executed by the court. Therefore, I have included these laws in this book because they are connected with the burial of a person on the day of his death, which is a positive commandment. 2. For a high priest not to become impure because of his relatives. 3. For him not to enter a place where a corpse is lying. 4. For a common priest not to contract impurity from contact with a human corpse, with the exception of his relatives. The laws of kings and their wars. They contain 23 mitzvot, 10 positive commandments and 13 negative commandments. They are: 1. To appoint a king over Israel. 2. Not to appoint a convert as a king. 3. That the king should not accumulate many wives. 4. That the king should not accumulate many horses. 5. That the king should not accumulate much silver and gold. 6. To annihilate the 7 nations. 7. Not to allow any of them to remain alive. 8. To wipe out the descendants of Amalek. 9. To remember what Amalek did to us. 10. Not to forget Amalek's wicked deeds and their ambushing our people on the journey to Eretz Yisrael. 11. Not to dwell in Egypt. 12. To make an offer of peace to the inhabitants of a city to which we lay siege, and to carry out the Torah's instructions, whether they sue for peace or not. 13. Not to make an offer of peace to Ammon and Moab when we lay siege to their land. 14. Not to destroy fruit-producing trees in the process of a siege. 15. To prepare a place outside the army camp where the soldiers can go to defecate. 16. For a soldier to prepare a shovel with which he can dig to cover his excrement. 17. To anoint a priest to speak to the soldiers at the time of battle. 18. To allow a person who becomes betrothed, builds a house, or plants a vineyard, to rejoice in his acquisition for a full year and to be sent back from the army camp. 19. Not to call on them for any public duties, neither the needs of the community, the needs of the army, nor the like. 20. Not to panic and flee in the midst of battle. 21. The law of a Yefat Toar. 22. Not to sell a Yefat Toar. 23. Not to enslave a Yefat Toar after having relations with her. Thus, this book contains a total of 74 mitzvot, 27 positive commandments, and 47 negative commandments. There are a total of 83 halachot in these 14 books. Now, I will begin to explain the rules governing each mitzvah and the relevant laws that are included with them, according to the order of these halachot. With the help of the Almighty, please share this video to spread the goodness and be well.